right? You paid $30 to get a steak dinner that showed up with the steak cut in half and the other half isn't there. The potatoes cut in half, not there. And then the server comes over and starts replacing the peas with more peas. And you're like, hey man, where's my other half of the steak? And they're like, yeah, we're gonna get another 25% of your steak to you in about 18 months time over that 18 months. But in the meantime, we're gonna keep replacing the peas. And in 2 years, you'll have a full steak. That's what we're talking about right now. That's what we're dealing with. And so when we look at these changes, we have to keep all of that in mind, right? We have 50% of a steak, we have 50% mashed potatoes, and every single one of these changes is either making the needle move towards more steak and potatoes or wasting our time and replacing a pea. Which would you rather have? These are the questions that need to be asked. Which would you rather have? Would you rather have a new pea or would you rather have another another bite of steak? I'll take a bite of steak any day. And I'm pretty sure most people would too. Even if they don't eat steak, they'd be like, hey, this is what I paid for because my partner likes steak, or my buddy that I'm playing with wants the steak, and I'm happy with peas, or maybe you got like a vegan option. The analogy remains the same. And so we have this conversation with every single point, everything on this table, because all of this, you know what this equals? This equals a graph. And when the graph doesn't do this towards more steak, we got a huge problem. We got a 1-20-26. We have a 2-year timetable. And this isn't the graph that we have towards steak, right? This is a representation of what we should have got. By no means did we get that. We got like a flat line. And that situation does not lend itself to player retention, to a conversation about, you know, excitement and like in hype for like, hey, we're getting the new, you know, the Templar next month. Oh man, I can't wait till the next league. We're gonna get the Druid. And then it's like, yeah, sorry, we had to cut the Druid. Really wanted to give you guys a new playable class, but sorry, it's not coming this time. Why? Yeah, so we spent our time replacing peas on your plate, and you know, the carrots weren't long enough, so we had to shorten them. Okay. Yeah, yeah. You know, if you're doing a comedy club or something, you're making a living as a comedian, I mean, power to you. You've got some content right there. If you're a development studio making a game, you've got some problems. So let's get back to it. Response could only be triggered by the person who put in the expedition logbook. Okay, this is a good change, right? This moves the needle towards a more finished game. This is not giving us more steak, but it is, let's just be charitable, it's not replacing a pea. At least we're getting a little bit more steak seasoning. You know, they're bringing out, you know, like a pot of juice, right? And they're like, they got a ladle and they're ladling out steak juice onto the plate, okay? We don't get more steak, but at least we're not getting a pea replaced, because that's just insulting. All right, added more checkpoints. Perfect. You might even say you got a sliver of steak with that one. You might even be charitable enough to say that you got the thinnest, smallest slice of steak, you know? Okay, added reset atlas chat command, which can be used to reset your atlas when it's in a brick state. Cool. Added minimap icons for strong boxes. Great. Minimap icons for league mechanics now remain visible regardless of how far away you are from traveling from them, making it easier to return to them later. Great. Hitting inanimate objects such as ice crystals, temple bell, yada 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 can no longer cause your trigger skills to generate energy. Why is this bad? Why is this bad? Why is this bad? Because this is a pea. I don't know, like peas are like, you know, because they kind of get wrinkly sometimes and they're, you know, heated up. This is a pea. Why is this a pea? Because this isn't steak, first and foremost. We know it's a pea because it's not a steak. And you say, well, steak isn't a pea. Those aren't the same. You're correct. But you know what we have here? A lot of goddamn peas. That's what we have here. And when we look at this problem, we are in general changes. When we look at this problem, we can see lots of good things, right? Lots of good changes, lots of green. We can also see lots of red. And so when we look at this change, we have to recognize that this pea is in place of steak. And it's also in place of anything else that could have been good, that could have been beneficial, because this is a buff or a nerf or a little percent change or a little tiny tweak, right, to a skill or a player ability that has absolutely nothing to do with finishing the game. If you would like to say this finishes the game, that's fine. If you would like to say that you would rather have this than a new playable class, that's okay too. However, when we look at these things in totality, totality, because we have a rudimentary timeline here, we can see that our timeline of changes has occurred in a drastically disproportionate way. And all the changes that are happening down here are right before the launch of 0.5, which is the biggest update that we've got. And then shortly after we get 1.0. We don't have any updates down here, right? And we have a similar phenomenon here and a similar phenomenon here. So let's zoom in, right? What's happening at these time frames, right? With these areas. Oh, look, 0.3. So we had 4 months of just a couple updates and then 0.3. Let's see what happens at the 0.4. So you see what it looks like when they're adding new content. You see what it looks like when they are giving you steak. And we can then see what it looks like when they are replacing peas. Now, grant you, we have some bias here because this time frame and this time frame are within the launch of the game. And so we have a lot of bug fixes. We got a lot of hot fixes. However, as we needle down into the individual content of each and every update that occurs across this time frame, we obviously can recognize, more importantly, what the focus is. And it is divided, greatly divided. So let's return to the conversation. This is a P, and the reality of that is a problem because this should not have been in the update, because this is the reason we don't have more playable characters right now, because it all adds up. And at the end of the day, this is not a finished game. This is a P. So let's take a look. Vine arrows can no longer take damage from hits and therefore no longer cause your on hit effects. Okay, again, this is the same problem. We are replacing a P with another P. This is not completing the game. This is messing with the vegetables. We need more steak. Finish the game. Minions can now briefly squeeze through smaller gaps if they fail to move for a short period. Why is this different? Why are these things less important? What is the difference? You could say it's a judgment call. You could say it's a valuation. You could say it's a completely different thing between this and that. You could take any stance on the spectrum of P versus steak. Ultimately, these changes add up for good or for bad. And you can say that these are good and that these are bad. You could say anything you want. I'm going to say this is good. I'm going to say the other one's bad. But ultimately, when we look at the state of the game, is the game more finished? Do we have more playable classes? Do we have more items? Do we have more content to experience? This is, in my opinion, a good change. And this other thing, in my opinion, is a bad change. But ultimately, all of this either pushes the needle, right? We have a needle on the compass. Either we're pointing north or we're pointing south. So I'm going to say that these changes here and these changes here are not as important, but they are better or worse because they indicate a change in a direction that is either positive or negative, right? It either, supports the game's development in a permanent way, or it could be changed tomorrow and never matter again, and we'll never know, right? We'll never have an appreciation for all of these changes. We'll never look at this and go, God, I wish they did this, every single patch, because the game is just in a broken state. There's one button builds. We need so many balance changes. We need all these fixes right now when we have half a plate of food, right? These things ultimately, they don't move the needle. They just change its direction. And I would rather see a change in direction this way than a change in direction this way. Channeled skills, which scale their cost, attack, and cast speed modifiers, now explicitly describe this. Okay, explicitly describing this is an added amount of content. You have more game now. You have more text on the page. As minuscule as this is, it is in extreme essence more, which is good. Unused stats in the skill and character menu interfaces are no longer displayed. Again, I think this is a good addition. The stun threshold tooltip now provides more information on stun mechanics. Good. More content. Excellent. Added. Excellent. Controller support. Good stuff. We are adding dedicated keybinds, display and advanced item information while using a controller. All of this is fantastic. Increase the size of text in various locations when using a controller. I would say, would I rather have this than them finishing the game? I'm in between on that, but let's just say that works. To be neutral on. We are getting improvements for controller support, made further changes to reduce the aggressive targeting of Tempest Bell when using a controller. Controller support, we love consoles. It's a huge part of the player base. We have to give support and love to that. And I'll be honest, this game was designed to play with a controller in a huge way. It is buttery. So reverted the change. So when these changes happen, it's always good. Reverted the change from the 1.1 patch, which allowed you to pick up items and interact with some objects while performing other actions due to issues introduced. Neutral. Made a thing. It didn't work. You had to redo it. It's fine. It happens. You can now change the name of your Path of Exile to character. Swap the name of your characters access. Okay, so this is a good thing, but it's not really necessarily it's like enable the following cosmetics microtransaction. Okay, MTX. Again, MTX is fantastic. It's the reason we're all here. If MTX didn't exist, neither would the game. So MTX always gets a good note in my book. Continue to incrementally improve the sound. So again, this is a huge one. If they listed everything that they were doing, the list would be twice as long as every item that I've, made a note of in here already. Overall, I'll be honest, this was a good update. There was some problems, some aspects, some P's on the plate that were replaced, but I would say overall 1.1C, you did good. Alrighty, and with that, we have come to the end of the video. Like the video or dislike it. If you agree or disagree, let me know why in the comments. This video is going to take quite a while to finish, and will be definitely broken up into many parts. So make sure to check out the other ones if you haven't already. I will theoretically be streaming at some point. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, Aramorian signing off.